Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And for those listening or watching in different time zones, good morning or good evening. My name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited or CTS. And we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co creating customized programs with our world class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from 30 countries in different industries, and that includes Petronas, Sony Mobile, ProLife UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, and Shell, to name a few. Expert says that the pandemic will last in the next 3 to 5 years. And this is why we are organizing several interventions, including this interview, to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt to the new normal, those who actually find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a remote team, and for those who are afraid that they can't keep their team or their business. So, to be able to stay relevant and continue to lead effectively in any situation, we'll be glad to have you in all our interventions. So, today it's my great pleasure to introduce our leader. I'm so excited to have him here. His name is Leigh Cowan. He studied marketing for 14 years at university, learning his craft inside out, proving himself in the UK as well as Australia with multi-million dollar successes. He shared his knowledge by lecturing in MBA and capstone undergraduate subjects at universities in Sydney, Australia. After reaching CMO level in fast moving consumer goods, he moved into consulting and ran strategic consulting firm leadership empowerment made other similarly qualified experts in the business, providing leadership and management advice in strategy and planning. Lay has sat on private, publicly listed, and government boards and helped multinational companies generate billions in revenue. He has authored numerous books and is a popular presenter of commercial training, workshops, and as a public speaker in all things strategic. Lay holds a plethora of short course certificates as well as Bachelor of Commerce degree from Sydney's University, New South Wales, and graduate diploma in strategic planning from England's London City University. So without so much further ado, I'd like to bring in Lay. Hi, Lay.
Hi,
Nice to
Marilyn.
have you here. How
Uh,
are you today?
very good, thank you. And you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you for asking
Excellent.
that question. And
Excellent.
again, I'm so glad to have you today. And I
Thank
look
you.
forward to learning from you.
Well, I hope I can lend something to the conversation, Marilyn. But I dare doubt that you'll have some interesting questions for me.
Yes, definitely, definitely, Lay. So let's jump into the questions. Or actually, I will start my first three questions or statements, perhaps, to find out more on your perspective, so we can have an understanding. Um, where you're coming from, and then the 4 to 6 questions I've actually intendedly asked those or will ask those questions to get the juicy part or meaty part from you, I would say. And the last two questions will be my an opportunity for you to answer Miss Universe questions.
Okay. Well, I
So
should
to
get out my bikini, but we'll hold on a minute.
So, to start with, please feel free to share with us your leadership experiences, and probably your influencers, or if you do have a favorite leadership style that you'd like to use when you were, in the corporate and as a as a consultant as well. What do you recommend?
Well,
Please.
my experiences started off, I guess, with military college in high school. I went to a very British styled military school, and the leadership template or process there was do what you're told, whether it's right or wrong. You just do what you're told and you don't argue. Um, so it wasn't really until I got out into the real world that I learnt that for a lot of people, including myself,
Mhm.
it's best to know exactly what you're meant to be to do, and then to get on and do it as best you can. And as
Mhm.
long as you're empowered with the right tools, I think that's a winning equation. So I, I, I really think that leadership is more about letting people do their best, because I think people naturally want to. I
Mhm.
think everybody actually wants to do their best, and
Mhm.
it's too tight or too ambiguous leadership that actually stops people from getting on and being as productive as they potentially can. Now, in terms of leadership influences, there are numerous personal ones, friends and acquaintances and peers that have offered me excellent mentorship. But I wanted to think of, when you said four, I wanted to think of a variety, and I think it's hard to go past Peter Drucker, um, once called the father of all business, I think, by Newsweek or one large American publisher. Um, and I think Peter Drucker sums it up when he says all of the decisions an executive makes, of all the decisions an executive makes, none is more important than
Mhm.
decisions about people. And I think that's a great leadership landmark, or icon to pursue. Um, are you familiar with Drucker? I suppose other people have spoken to you about Drucker in the past.
No, I think it's the first time I've heard.
Okay.
So
Well,
thank
look,
you for telling me.
I'm sure some of your listeners would know Peter Drucker, and certainly those that don't could do a lot worse than spend a minute or two just Googling Peter
So
Drucker.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
excellent mentor. My very, very favourite would would be W. Edwards Deming, who is almost forgotten now in the younger generations, but he is almost solely responsible for teaching the Japanese modern business theory in such a way that he is actually sometimes awarded as the reason that the Japanese became the economic miracle that they did post World War II. And in fact, there is still a Deming Prize for outstanding commercial performance in Japan, even to this
Mm-hmm.
day. But W. Edwards Deming was a brilliant, brilliant, intuitive leader who provided so much leadership value to those that listened, and the Japanese listened hard, and well, the results speak for themselves. Um, Jack Welch, I think there would be very little argument that Jack Welch is an influential leader of worth. Um, he said good business leaders create a vision, articulate
Mm-hmm.
the vision, passionately own the vision, and relentlessly drive it to completion. And I so believe in that. I really think that once you empower people with a clarity and an understanding of what is expected of them, they just get on and do it. And I think that's a really important leadership um, quality. And the fourth one I thought of to sort of, colour up the mix and give it a bit more dimension was Theodore Levitt, who's one of my marketing influences. And I love the Theodore Levitt quote, people don't buy quarter-inch drills, they buy quarter-inch holes. And it's so much to do with the true essence of marketing, which is to give people satisfaction of needs and the holistic management of exchange. If we focus too much on the product and not on the actual outcome, we can make bad leadership decisions in terms of what we're actually doing and our purpose and our reason for being, our identity or our intent, which then creates ambiguity and compounds difficulty in leadership. So I wanted to throw Theodore Levitt into the mix as well. Sorry for the long answer.
No worries. And,
Yeah.
we're already getting a lot of, juicy information from you, considering we're just getting started, right? I mean, it's good to, the reason why I've shared in my summary some of the, influencers that you've shared is obviously it's easier for them to anchor this. But what I've actually, I would say the top learnings I would have from what you have to say is that, you've actually learned from both the bad and the good leaders that you've worked with. Bad meaning that, what not to do.
Yep.
And for the good ones, and those that, influencers that you made mention, the four influencers that you've made mention are mainly on, they inspiring you on how to actually lead effectively. You've mentioned win-win-win situation, and, focusing on human as well, and the balance that you've actually can create in, leading the team, that you work with, right? So that's really like helpful in terms of what leadership style we should, look out for, when, or use when we work with different type of people as well, because there's no, like, because you gave us for example, and it obviously means that, you can't just have like, one style, right?
Yep.
and and there has to be like this, depending on what you do, right? And like what's the vision, or what's the goal that you might have, in leading your team, right?
Yeah.
So
I think
having
it's about yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
about freeing people to do their best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's there's been a lot of research done on employee engagement
Mm-hmm.
around the world, and some people have actually thrown the term up in the air, the employment engagement crisis, because
Mm-hmm.
research has shown that the average engaged proportion of engaged employees in workforces is only around the 20 to 25%
Mm-hmm.
globally, and it varies from country to country for a whole lot of reasons, and I
Mm-hmm.
won't go into too much. But 54 no sorry 51% of people who are not engaged are actually not engaged because they don't like their boss. Now, when you drill down into that, about a third of the people who are not engaged actually are confused about why they even come to work. What's their purpose? And you get these modern so-called gurus of business like Gary Vee and Simon Sinek and a couple of the others who go on about purpose a lot. But yeah, really, it's about giving people clear direction, because the reason they're not getting on with their boss is because their boss thinks that they should be doing one thing. Their intuition is telling them another thing, because there's poor communication, because they don't share that mission and vision, a common mission and vision, the way that they should. And I think good leaders are able to articulate and passionately impress with clarity what it is that is expected of the middle management and the employees. And when that happens, you end
Mm-hmm.
up with this killer culture because everybody's on the same page. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what makes it all work. So if a leader doesn't do that, he's showing poor leadership. If a
Mm-hmm.
leader micromanages people and doesn't let them express their understanding, then all he's doing is trying to do everybody else's job when he should be letting them to do their own job. Steve Jobs actually said, at Apple, we don't employ great people and tell them what to do. We employ great people and get them to tell us what to do. And that's a really good attitude. That's a really good leadership
Yes,
style.
yes. And I'm really glad, you're sharing all these examples. We're learning more because of this example, because we can really anchor what you mean by that. And that leads me to my next question. Having said all these examples and sharing these, influencers that you have in your life, what is leadership for you?
Um, well, My little definition of leadership is the process of engaging others in the pursuit of achieving objectives. All right, it sounds a bit airy fairy, etc. But I think we need to really get our heads around that because, as I said, it's freeing people you work with so that they can have a say, they can share and enjoy the successes of the team's combined efforts, and everybody has a feeling of fulfillment at the end of the day. And I think everybody's probably sick to death of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it is about self-actualization and fulfillment because somebody else said, and I can't remember, it's not the end of the journey that's the excitement and the wonder, it's the actual journey itself that makes people boil over with enthusiasm. And that's what I mean about this killer culture. The achievement of goals is kind of the not necessarily the fulfillment, it's the participation in the achievement of goals that is the fulfilling part. And as I think Branson says, it's all about people. I know Jack Welch said something to that effect. He said, the team with the best people wins. And I like that saying too, because best people is not necessarily the strongest or the fittest or the most skilled. It's that team that utilizes the strength, skill, and talent that actually will rise to the top.
True. I totally agree on what you've been, sharing with us, and like what you've said. And that the reason why you should get people, or the great ones in your team, or the right ones in your team, is because you want them to do what they're good at, right? And
Yeah.
that's what success is. And it's always like, especially for big organizations where we have both work with, right? It requires like a pool of talents to work together. That's teamwork, like you said, combined effort, which you've shared in this summary I'm flashing right now. And it's all about people and making that experience for people to stay engaged in the organization or in the company, right? And that the leader would really drive a lot of these, the people, the business, and that's the important role of leaders. And a lot of leaders have really, I would say, had some challenge, or like in some point became a bit clueless because of the changes that happened, especially during COVID-19. And
Absolutely.
so that leads me to my next questions. How would you describe or define the next normal, having to hear all these issues that I've just mentioned, and you've been hearing a lot in the past few months or years?
Well, look, I'm right in the pocket of those experts you mentioned. I think you might have mentioned to me either privately or earlier in this conversation that COVID's going to be around for the next 3 to 7 years. I think that the new normal hasn't yet arrived. I think we're in a state of flux and a state of change. We're kind of going around the corner and we haven't straightened up and found a new velocity. We're in this acceleration to a new understanding. But look, I think, and a lot of people have said this already, that it's the ability to adapt. It's Darwinism in practice. Those who can adapt are just going to prosper, and those that want to hold on to old values and outdated modes of behaviour are going to suffer like dinosaurs. And the new normal for us is going to be one where we get in front of change, not stay behind it. Another Jack Welch quote is, if the rate of change on the outside is faster than the rate of change on the inside, then the end is nigh, which meaning, you're finished. You've gone. And I think the new normal is going to be a combination of innovation and a slight swing from the old the general is right and everybody else must pay attention and do what they're told, to the general needs more advice. General, when's a good time for us to confer and determine what is the best course of action? And the general says, right now, I'm all ears. I think that's really about, leadership now is much less about the boss knowing it all and much more about the boss listening to it all.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And we made mention about being able to adapt in the new normal, or like what you've said, getting ahead of the changes happening,
Mm.
rather than being behind of these changes, right? But I mean, you've worked as well in the corporate world for quite some time, and at the same time, you're consulting with multinational companies. A lot of them are multinational companies. So, from your experience as a corporate leader and working with corporate leaders, what would you say would be the top three problems that they are normally facing, whether it's in this normal or next normal?
Okay. Look, I think it was Warren Buffett who originally coined an expression called corporate cancer.
Mm.
And he said that he stays away from companies with corporate cancer because they're wild cards and they're on the precipice of failure without knowing it. And I think he may have even cited companies like Nokia and Blockbuster and Kodak and other companies of that ilk. But the real ABCs of corporate culture, as he kind of alluded to, are basically summarized as arrogance, bureaucracy, and complacency. And I think when I took a proposal to a large company here in Australia that promised to increase their EBIT by about 400 million a year. And I had senior executives in the companies in a line all
Mhm.
approved the concept. And as it transpired, one died of pancreatic cancer, one was pipped at the post for CEO and went to an American corporation as a result. And the third one was the ex-CEO, and the incumbent CEO didn't like him and so didn't want to support his ideas. So there was some politics and there was some mismanagement, and there was some just bad luck, circumstantial evidence, occurrence, which is just unavoidable. That's the way of the world. But finally, I got on to a fourth person who basically said to me that how could anyone on the outside know better how to run their business than the people on the inside? And he was just exhibiting awful corporate arrogance. And basically, I let the whole concept drop, and I moved on to other things. But the cost to the company, the cost to the shareholders, the human cost in terms of frustration and agony, because that company is very aggressively seeking profit from other activities that aren't necessarily as positive win-win, is uncalculable. And that's all due to this corporate arrogance that was exhibited by this large company.
Mhm.
Bureaucracy, well, I mean, I think it might have been bureaucracy that might have been the response, the cause of Nokia's breakdown. Certainly in terms of some government departments and organisations that I've worked with, and some not-for-profits. The bureaucracy is really stifling. And I would say complacency, where company says, well, we're doing fine, we're getting 10% EBIT or whatever they think is a valued KPI, when they could be doing a lot better. And then many times, and many business philosophers have often said, success is the worst possible hurdle to jump when you can do so much better. And that's all about complacency. Before Jack Welch took over GE thought it was doing well, and when Jack Welch took over, it increased threefold within a handful of years. But until he took over, there was this complacency that they were doing good enough. And it wasn't until Jack said, no, we can do a lot better, than anybody even considered raising the bar. So, the ABCs of corporate cancer, I think, are probably the three top problems that all corporate leaders face. And again, I think it comes back to leadership, because if you set a mission and an ethos and a vision and a purpose and an identity and values that choke or prevent arrogance and bureaucracy and complacency from happening, then you're doing a great job of leadership, because the rest will just naturally happen anyway.
Wow, that's really amazing. Thank you for sharing that. It sounds so simple because you use ABC, but in fact, and then it's so common, I would say, it's really spot on when you said about arrogance, bureaucracy, and complacency. And yeah, I mean, a lot of organizations are actually facing this problem, both everywhere in the world, I would say, right? And it's all about, and that's where our value as an external consultant comes in as well, right? Because sometimes it's so difficult to see all this when you're inside the picture, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, look, I really believe that every human being has something to offer, something profound and significant to offer. It's up to the organisation that recruits that human being to be able to give them the opportunity to make that contribution. And when you've got a supervisor who arrogantly dismisses a young person's idea, you're actually just destroying. It's a lose-lose-lose situation. It's a lose for the person who's dismissing it. It's a lose for the person who's suggesting it. It's a loss for the organisation, for all the stakeholders in the organisation, including shareholders, and even the consumers who ultimately would benefit from that. And here's a great example. Back in the 70s, Colgate toothpaste were trying to work out how to increase their performance. And there's a tool that we use in strategic marketing called the 3 U's. It's a simple tool. Ways to increase usage, users, or users. Right? So they're the 3 U's. Right? So, they had, I believe it was a team of 22 product managers, assistant product managers, and there was a marketing manager and a chief marketing officer. Increase the toothpaste. How do we increase the toothpaste? How do we get more users or more usage? And the meeting had gone on for hours and everybody was exhausted and nobody had come up with a good idea. And there was this little assistant product manager who had only been with the company like 12 weeks. And he said, why don't we increase the size of the hole in the the toothpaste tube, as there's a hole at the end that you squeeze the toothpaste out of. He said, why don't we increase the size of the hole? And he'd just done the arithmetic and he knew his pi r squared, and if you increase the size of the whole of the toothpaste tube by a small amount, because it's the outer perimeter, there's quite a lot of volume, that would increase the usage. And when they actually got down and worked it out mathematically, it was a significant increase in usage, and they did so, and their usage volume went up, and he got a massive promotion, and they achieved all their goals. But this was from a young, naive kid who didn't really understand the significance of
Mhm.
the thought that popped into his mind. Now, if they didn't include him in the meeting because he was a young freshman, they would
Mhm.
have missed out on that opportunity, and they probably would have sat around for the next 3 months having endless meeting after endless meeting and not finding that sort of performance result. A simple, simple solution to a complex problem. And I really like that as an example of how everybody has worth.
Yes, I love that example. I mean, it makes it easier for us to really understand what you mean when you give us examples or case studies that you've been sharing with us. And we've shared earlier the ABCs of corporate cancer as the top three problems. And so now let's probably give them a bit of a solution by identifying actually what are the important leadership skills and capabilities that you must have in the next normal to be able to continue to lead effectively?
Okay, well, there's this humble little bloke that's done all right out of one philosophy. His name's Jeff Bezos, and he runs this little company called Amazon. Um, and his most important focus is what he describes as obsessive compulsive focus on the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a pretty important leadership quality to maintain. I think if you've got to have that, if the boss doesn't believe that the customer is important, then nobody else is really going to worry about it. And you can watch the dollars walk out the door. Nokia definitely lost the plot there. The whole Nokia ethos and value system was no longer about pleasing the customer. It was all to do with internal bureaucracy and arrogance and complacency and a lot of other things. So, yeah, I certainly think we can take a lesson out of the Bezos book. But at the other end of the spectrum, if you've got this long spectrum here of one area of thought and another area of thought, there is Richard Branson, who says, take care of your employees and your employees will take care of your customer and everybody will be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's an important aspect too. If Amazon is suffering any problems at the moment, it's suffering a problem of kickback from its employees not feeling that they are happy. And there are obviously unengaged employees, disengaged employees, and there's a difference. Disengaged employees are actually trying to sink the boat, and globally that is 16% of the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case and Amazon's got this problem, then you can bet your bottom dollar there are 16% of employees
Mm-hmm.
who are at liberty to kick a parcel around, to steal coffee and biscuits from the lunchroom, to take home extra sheets of stationery and steal rolls of toilet paper and all sorts of things. So that is a problem for Bezos. It probably doesn't exist as strongly for Branson, but there would still be people in Branson's workforce who are disengaged. But if you actually think about the Branson approach to looking after employees and making them happy, and the Bezos approach of focus on the customer, make the customer happy so they come back. Let's face it, Amazon started off selling books online, right? Nobody should have made money from selling books online. It's a ludicrous concept. But the fact was that he soon found out that his capability was not being a bookshop. His capability was in the processes of delivering customer satisfaction using the online medium as his channel of communication. And so what he did is he just made customers go, wow, that was a pleasant commercial experience. That was a pleasant experience of exchange. If that company wants to sell me electric goods or furniture or something, I'd buy from them again because their service was so good. And so what Bezos did is he created a happy customer. The higher the it only costs you 20% to resell something to an existing customer than it does to actually find a new customer to sell to. And so Bezos just applied the equation of marketing science. Very, very good. Compulsive, obsessive focus on the customer. Branson, let's give people satisfaction because the employees want to give them satisfaction. Let's not hit them with a whip. Let's give them some candy and make the customers happy. Now, I don't fly Jetstar at all in Australia or at all globally because I had a terrible service experience from Jetstar. Not in the plane, on the ground. Now, it's corporate policy that we don't fly in our firm. We don't fly Qantas or Jetstar unless we absolutely have no other choice, and that is because we are out of there because they did not have an obsessive compulsive focus on the customer. And I've flown around the world countless times, first class, business class, economy. So have the rest of my team. There is a large quantum of funds that don't go to the airline, to certain airlines, because they don't provide that compulsive focus on the customer. So I think that leadership quality passed down, becoming the culture of the organisation, is a really important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there
Is there
anything more
anything more
that you'd like to add other than being, obsessive compulsive about your customer and, taking care of your employee?
Um,
If there's one more thing you'd like to add on,
uh,
on the capability, skills, or character a leader must have to be able to, lead effectively in this next normal.
look, I think the importance of a willingness to go out there and grab change, a willingness to actually, to not a fear of change, but an excitement about change. It's a real attitudinal thing. And I think if you can get over the inertia of wanting to do what's comfortable. I've got two children, one 11, one 12. My 11-year-old wants to go and do everything and taste everything, and she's already behaving like a teenager. My son, the older one, the 12-and-a-half-year-old, he says no to everything. And I just see him missing out on opportunities because he's comfortable with what he knows and what's familiar. And he's not as willing to dare to try something new. And I think we all have to dare to try something new. As Robin Williams said in Dead Poets Society, we've got to suck the marrow out of life. We can't just sit back and let opportunities slip through our fingers. We have to go and grab that opportunity and get our teeth into it and really bite down hard and taste it and savor it and enjoy it and make a feast out of it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing with us. It's all about like being fearless, right, with what you do. And again, like what you've said, embracing change. And of course, the best part that you've shared as well is being able to be obsessive compulsive about the need of your customers, similar to your employees as well, right? Taking care of both your employees and your clients will be definitely some of the top things leaders must pay attention to. And so I mean we've been talking about several things on learning, on leadership and transformation. So what do you believe is the role of all these three in order to thrive in the next normal?
Look, I think if I had a magic wand and I could use it what I would do with the wider and broader business community is
Mhm.
I would whip this misunderstanding out of every executive that marketing is selling or promotion or advertising. It's not. Marketing communications is part of the marketing mix, and marketing is the management of exchange. It's not just advertising and selling and promotion. And so why we're going off target, why we're not achieving what we should do, why there is frustration and misunderstanding is because when you start to think about the management of exchange, which is my definition of the word marketing, if you just limit yourself to marketing communications, you forget about the holistic, integrated actions and cooperative responses that come from pricing and from channels of distribution and from the actual product itself and the people that actually are involved in the decision making, the processes. Like McDonald's, you don't go to McDonald's because you want the yummiest food ever bought. You don't go to McDonald's because of the stimulating conversation and wonderful rapport you have with the person behind the counter. You don't go to McDonald's for the decor. You don't go to McDonald's for the social esteem. You go to McDonald's because there is a process that is so tight and so well managed that you can buy a Big Mac in Tokyo or Toronto or in the Thames, and you will get exactly what you know you will get. It meets expectations, and that's the processes that are involved. That's part of marketing too. And so my concern with business overall is years and years and years ago, when marketing first came into the fore, everybody wanted to get a marketing qualified person because it almost meant you were writing an open check in terms of profit, because everybody that understood marketing knew how to make contributions to the decisions made by leaders that were the right decisions. Over the years, marketing communications became very profound because it was big budget advertising, so on and so forth. And then people started to shorten marketing communications to marketing, and those that didn't know what marketing was thought that marketing communications was the whole ball and dice. And now you've got to the point where advertising agencies who are trying to earn more money call themselves marketing consultancies so that they can get more money, more of that basket out of the customer. They don't really understand marketing, and that confuses the buyer who's not trained in marketing, because a lot of CEOs and leaders are trained out of the accounting or the production or the engineering or the administration or the HR disciplines and don't have the advanced training. And so they get to start to think of marketing as fluff or smoke and mirrors or a whole lot of BS, and they don't understand the science. And when you don't have the science anymore, you go from having a medical doctor looking after you to having a witch doctor looking after you. And when you have a witch doctor looking after you, it's good for local, normal, repetitive institutional problems. But when you have different, ferocious, extraordinary, painful, unexpected scenarios happen, the witch doctor has no idea, but a medical doctor with a basis of scientific knowledge and understanding has at least the tools to attack the problem better. And this is what's happening in the world of marketing. We have people making marketing decisions who are not qualified in marketing, and because the new normal exists, because we've got this kinetic activity of change, what's happening is those people who operationally know the operational types of marketing are lost, and the strategic people are sorely missed. But the leaders don't know the type of person they're missing, and everybody's just frustrated. So if I have a magic wand, I'd make sure that everybody balanced their operational and their marketing talent in their organisation in a much
Mhm.
better way. There was another thought I had that slipped into my mind. It's just slipped out again. Hopefully I'll remember it before the end of this conversation. But there we
Yes,
go.
thank you. Thank you for sharing with us that answer for my question on the magic wand. And I think you missed out my question, though you've answered it in the several questions that we've been talking about earlier, which is the role of learning, leadership, and transformation, which you've made mention earlier about the importance of looking into people, like prioritizing people, whether as a customer or as an employee, and also of course the importance and willingness to adapt in this new normal, right? And obviously you're a marketing person. I've heard a lot of brands from you from the start. So, and that would lead me to my last question, I would say. So um, if you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be? And feel free to share with us, like, why is this your answer, and like what is the process that you've gone through, like, thinking of like what should I answer on this question, especially on those this two last questions I gave to you on the magic wand, and the best the questions that you would ask yourself about, that you can best answer.
Sure. Well, look, I've written strategic plans for large multinationals, billion
Mm-hmm.
dollar companies, and I've written business plans for small startups and turned them into global entities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've written business plans and marketing plans for companies, and the companies haven't followed them.
Mm-hmm.
um, for political reasons, and I've written plans for people that they've followed them, and they've not believed how well the plans have actually evolved. I did something for the government back in the 80s, and I was on the board of management for a state government
Mm-hmm.
group. They wanted me to provide a commercial profit generating solution for them, and I said, okay, well, look, on the factors that you've given me and all the resources that you've allowed, I predict we will sell 165,250 units. And one of the managers got up and he actually laughed at me and called me names and walked out of the meeting. 3 months later, at the end of the promotion, we had sold 165,500 sets of number plates. So I was wrong by 250, and that was about a 99% accuracy forecast.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I was able to do that was that I actually laid down all the parameters of the plan so well that all they had to do was to be followed. I'm not smarter than the next guy. I'm just disciplined like glue to the process of the science of marketing. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the best way to build and maintain a
Mm-hmm.
great business, a great organization, a great workplace, a great culture in
Mm-hmm.
small and big business alike is to lay down what I talked about at the beginning, which is a really clear mission, ethos, vision, purpose, identity, and values array so that everybody's on the same page and everybody is working together like a team. You have, I know your Filipino background, and I know Philippines is very, very keen on basketball. In Australia, we're very, very keen on rugby. In Europe, everybody's very, very keen in soccer, and so on and so forth. In any team, there is not, or in a soccer team, for argument's sake, there is not 11 goalies on the field. There are not 11 centre forwards. There are not 11 wingers. In rugby union, there is not 15 halfbacks or 15 wingers or 15 fullbacks or 15 hookers. There is a combination of different people with different talent, different skill, and everybody knows to rely and work together as a team. And when they do, they work, they win. That is because they have a shared mission, ethos, a vision, a purpose, an intent, and values. Everybody shares those things. Now, for some reason, when this is not shared, this is not always shared in a company. I had one client who I said, who said, well, Leigh, we've got a marketing problem. We really need to fix things up. We've got competitors biting our heels. We're not working well with our trade and our channel. Profits are hard to come by, and we're not increasing our value, our sales. What can we do? I said, well, what's your mission and your vision statement? And they said, oh, we made those about 60 years ago. They're locked away in some vault. I don't remember what they are. So I had nowhere to start. I had no common ground, no foundation to even work with him. I ended up helping him turn his company from a $24 million a year company to a $100 million a year company. But it wasn't without a struggle and angst, because we really had to use a backdoor method to get in there and get them to develop their mission and vision. So what we basically do, or what I do within my firm right now, my consulting role has changed very much from a marketing management perspective to a marketing governance, and that is management of exchange governance, or corporate governance decision making. So I help companies develop their mission, vision, ethos, purpose, intent, and value statements, because once they do that, they have the tools to be great leaders, and the leadership just comes naturally to them, and the leadership value flows through the organization, and killer culture happens, and the world turns beautifully and happily with life balance and a rhythm that is the envy of all their competitors. And that's really where I think good business comes from. And I think it's so simple. We're so busy treating the symptoms that we're not fixing the underlying cause. So that's what I'd really like to see happen for more people, is for them to, with employee engagement, for argument's sake. There's companies out there flogging survey software and team building and new coffee urns and corporate T-shirts for all the team and all that sort of stuff, when all the team really want is a purpose in life. And if we can give that to them, they don't need all the tricks. So I think the question I would ask myself is, what can we do to build and maintain a great company? And the answer to that, I think, is to build this great MEV-PIV. So that's a long answer to a short question, I know. Okay, I've lost sound. I can't hear you.
No, I actually accidentally put myself in mute. So, so the question that you ask is, again, what we can do to build and maintain a great work ethic and workplace culture in a small and big business alike. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Okay.
And the answer is mission and vision, and etc.
Mission and vision. Yes. And I mean, even before you've actually answered that question on the mission and vision, you've shared with us a story as well on this, right? So it's mainly like, showing us how you can actually answer this question, that, you would ask yourself, right? So that's the end of my questions, and I really appreciate all those nuggets that you've shared with us, all the brand experience, and all the juicy experiences that you've shared with us today. So before we end this interview, is there like a message that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I think there's probably been a few that I've shared during the course of this discussion.
Yes.
Look, I think um, we have to be very wary of
Mhm.
jumping the gun with COVID. I think we have to really, really think outside the dots with our product portfolio and brand portfolio. Markets, remember, are only a corral for market segments. So if you imagine a horse corral, there's a black and white horse, there's a brown horse, there's a black horse, there's little horses, there's big horses. They're all different. They all have different needs. So do market segments. And because of COVID, market segments have changed. So I'd urge everybody to really think about their market segmentation. And I'd really like to urge everybody to think about allowing their teams to do their best. And if I leave those two messages with the listeners, then I've probably done the best I possibly can.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that message to us. And we really appreciate all the sharing of, I would say this is more of a case study shares about the brands that you shared throughout the questions and this interview. And, we really appreciate all those very valuable information, very strategic as well. And so we appreciate you, Leigh, for that. And is and thank you as well for your last message. And you've given a lot of valuable nuggets. And I would say you've given us a lot of reminders that are really valuable in leading in the next normal. So I thank you for that. And yeah, thank you everyone as well for watching us. And do join us in this journey to fight the pandemic that caused a lot of challenges, and let's all turn this into opportunity. And there's a lot of opportunities that we can have in this situation. I would say a lot of realizations as well. And do remember, even the richest investors in the world say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life. So with that, we would like to leave you with this quote from Dolly Parton, that if your action creates legacy that inspires others to dream more, to do more, to learn more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much again, Leigh, and thank you everyone. So bye for now, and looking forward to see everyone again in the next interviews. Bye for
Pleasure.
now.
Bye bye.